Good morning. Visitors, you're welcome. We're glad to have you with us. We're continuing a series this morning on families and family relationships in the Bible. And we'll be looking this morning at the relationship between Jacob and his son Joseph. It seems like I'm echoing in here. Maybe that could be turned down just a little bit. Tyler used the phrase relational harmony in his words on the communion this morning. That's a phrase that does not apply to Jacob and Joseph's family. This family was dysfunctional. It was dysfunctional from the very beginning. Men, can you imagine? You wake up the morning after your wedding only to discover, and now it's not going to work. Well, okay, it was working. Only to discover you married the wrong woman. And there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. Her father says, sorry, if you want to marry the woman you love, you've got to marry her older sister first. And so, within a week, Jacob finds himself married not only to the woman he loves, but also to her older sister. What a way to start a marriage. And it doesn't get any better. From there, we have the baby wars. Now, the society was a whole lot different. Okay, this was a much different society. Women in that society didn't really have much of a role. Their role, pretty much, was having children. And that's pretty much how they derived their sense of self-worth, was by giving birth to children, giving their husbands children. Yeah, there are maybe things better in that society than ours. I'm not sure that's one of them. Okay? So what happens? Well, Leah, the unloved wife, the older sister, begins having children. Okay? Jacob had to marry her. He didn't want to marry her from the beginning. But she craves his love, and with each birth, she's hoping, maybe now he'll love me. Didn't happen. Okay? Meanwhile, Rachel, she's not having kids. And she's pretty much going into hysterics because of it. And finally decides to give her slave Bilhah to her husband, to have children for her. Now, a lot of translations, in fact, will call Bilhah Rachel's handmaid, use some word like that. Okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat it here. Okay, this woman was given to Rachel by her father as a wedding present. Okay, she was a slave. And if Rachel says, you go sleep with my husband and raise up children for me, she really doesn't have much choice in that matter. Okay, again, a much different society. All right? And Bilhah does give Jacob a couple of children, Dan and Naphtali. And so, at this point, there are 6 sons. And Leah sees what's going on and says, hey, 2 can play at this game. I've got a slave too. Okay, oops. Okay. Wrong button. And so, back up. And so, she gives her slave Zilpah to Jacob, who then gives him a couple of sons. And what's more, Leah again starts having children again. And she has 2 sons and a daughter. Now, it may be that there were some other daughters mixed in here. I don't know. It seems like the Old Testament writers were not too interested in recording daughters. Okay? But anyway, they do mention one daughter, Dinah, here. And Well, okay, Rachel's really falling behind in this race, but eventually she does give birth to Joseph and then dies giving birth to Benjamin. It's this family that Joseph finds himself born into. All right? Now, let's get to his relationship with his father. Because Joseph was Jacob's favorite son. The Bible makes that clear. He gave him a special coat. And this is translated variously as a coat of many colors or a robe with long sleeves or a technicolor dream coat. By the way, if your Bible says Technicolor Dreamcoat, you might want to think about getting a more literal translation as a backup. Anyway, this is used by Genesis to show Jacob's special affinity toward Joseph. Okay? And Joseph reacts accordingly. Do we use the word tattletale still to talk about children who always report to their parents the naughty things their brothers and sisters do? I don't know whether, I don't know. I don't know whether this applies to Joseph so much. He was 17 by the time this happened. But that's basically what he was, okay? All right? He was bringing bad reports to his father about his brothers. Okay, yeah, well, why not? I mean, I'm his favorite son. Might as well stay in those good graces, right? Okay? He had a couple of prophetic dreams. And now this is something special. You know, if God chooses to give you these prophetic dreams, that's really something special. And these dreams indicated that his brothers and his father and mother, and by mother I assume they mean Leah because Rachel would have died by this point, they're all bowing down to him. Okay? Well, yeah, that's pretty special, but you know, you have dreams like that, you don't necessarily have to go around telling everybody, which is exactly what Joseph did, and really irritated his brothers. Okay? In fact, at some point, his brothers actually decided to get rid of him. Okay? The plan was to kill him at first. Okay? Yeah, this is serious, folks. Okay, they ended up not killing him. They weren't all in on the idea of killing him. Reuben talks him into throwing him into a pit. And then some of them, it's not clear how many of them, not Reuben, decide that it'd be a good idea to sell him into slavery. I mean, and they never did tell Reuben. I don't know how many of them, again, were in on it. But, you know, why tell somebody who doesn't know about it? You just got to split the price that they get between more people. Okay? So Reuben thinks he's dead. They convince their father that he's dead, that he's been killed by wild animals. Okay? Yeah, this is pretty serious stuff going on here. The lesson I draw from this is don't show favoritism among your children. I think Gene said something about that last week, didn't you? Yeah. Now, I have to be clear here. I never had the privilege of raising children. I do not know, I have not had the experience of having a special affinity toward one child as opposed to others. Okay? I don't know what that's like. Okay? Just telling you that right up front. What I'm telling you here, though, is that the Bible seems pretty clear on this. Not only in this story, but in the story of Jacob and Esau and their parents. Okay? How favoritism just led to some disastrous things. Okay? Not a good idea. The next part of the story, Jacob and Joseph are separated. Joseph is a slave in Egypt. Jacob thinks he's dead. What happens in Egypt? Well, Joseph lived his life with great integrity. Okay? He's a slave. He earns his master's trust because of his integrity. And then his integrity backfires on him when he refuses the advances of his master's wife. And she decides to accuse him of trying to rape her and gets him thrown into prison. Kind of a roller coaster going on here. In prison, he continues to live with integrity. Gets the trust of whoever's running the prison. Okay? And starts showing an ability to be able to interpret dreams. Pharaoh hears about this when he has a couple of dreams that are bothering him that he doesn't understand. And he calls Joseph in to interpret them. And he does. There are going to be 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. And so Pharaoh responds not only by releasing him from prison, but actually putting him at a high government position to be in charge of collecting taxes on the plenty so that they have plenty stored up for the famine. Okay, they can plan for this. All right? So, what's the lesson here? Don't let your circumstances define you. We were all raised in different families. Okay, I doubt that any of us was raised in a perfect family. I'm not sure there is a perfect family. Generally speaking, the families that we grow up in have some good, have some bad, and the balance was going to tip one way or the other. Okay? I don't know what your family situation was. It undoubtedly has shaped you into the person you are today, but it doesn't rob you of the choice to live your life with integrity. Okay? The circumstances during your adult life don't rob you of the choice of living with integrity. Look at Joseph. He lived with integrity no matter whether he was a slave or in prison or in a high government position. He was in all of those positions, and he lived with integrity through all of that. It doesn't always work to your favor, but it's generally speaking a positive thing. First of all, it's the right thing to do. And second, people tend to trust someone who lives with integrity, who shows integrity. And that can't be a bad thing. Okay? Now we move on to the reunion. Because the famine led Jacob to seek food in Egypt. Egypt's got food. All right? They're planning ahead. They've got food. Jacob doesn't have food. Their family is going hungry. Okay, they don't have food to feed their livestock. And so he sends Jacob's brothers, not the youngest one, not Benjamin, but he sends the brothers into Egypt to try to get food. And the person that they happen to come to is none other than Joseph. Joseph actually has an advantage here. He recognizes them. They don't recognize him. And boy, does he play to that advantage. Okay? Now, he eventually revealed himself to them, but not without jerking them around a bit. Okay? I mean, he actually puts maybe not the fear of their lives in them, but at least fear of their freedom. Okay? And he manipulates them into bringing Benjamin, his brother, into Egypt, and still not knowing who he is, before he finally reveals himself to them. And at that point, invites Jacob, invites the whole clan to come to Egypt to live. There's plenty here. You can thrive here. Okay? And I like the statement that Joseph made to his brothers. This is after their father had died, and the brothers were getting a little nervous. Maybe Joseph's now going to seek revenge on us. Okay? Listen to what he has to say. And yeah, I'm gonna read a verse finally, not just show you pictures I stole off the internet. Genesis 50:20. You planned evil against me. God planned it for good, to bring about the present result, the survival of many people. That leads me to the third lesson. God will use your circumstances to His glory. At first I thought about saying God can use your circumstances to His glory because, this is just one example, right? Okay, of God doing just exactly that. But I'm going to go ahead and say He will, because I believe He does. Okay, we see it over and over again. Not necessarily to your glory, but to His glory. Okay? Whether you choose to do good or to do evil, He can use that to accomplish His purposes. And that's not a bad thing, because what are His purposes? Salvation. He loves us all. He wants us all to come to be saved. And it's a whole lot better, isn't it, that we cooperate with that than to just let Him use our poor decisions to His glory? Wouldn't it be better to actually be on His side and work with Him and use what we offer to Him to His glory? So anyway, to summarize, 3 lessons. Don't show favoritism among your children. Don't let your circumstances define you. And God will use your circumstances to His glory. Are you a part of God's family? If not, we invite you to become a part of God's family. We can baptize you this morning. We would love to help you in any way we can. Let's stand and sing.